While Valorant started off as a very simple game with only a few operators that were pretty easy to get the hang of, as time has went on, we've amassed 23 total agents in Valorant so far, and chances are you're probably making some pretty big mistakes playing them. That's okay though, I'm here to help you today, as today we'll be going over one common mistake for every agent in Valorant. In alphabetical order, we're starting off with Astra, and your mistake you're making with Astra is you're not communicating with your team enough. Astra isn't like most other smoke characters because she requires a lot more coordination. Without teammates, her abilities are useless, and you'd find yourself rather just going Brim or Omen than having that Astra pick. But it's okay, because if you talk to your teammates, ask them, should I pull now? Should I smoke now? I'm gonna concuss. If you do all these things, you'll be getting way more kills and having more use out of your utility. Speaking of your utility, with Breach, the issue is you're using all of your utility at once, and you're probably using it in the wrong order too. While you do see pro Breaches using a lot of their util, like a concuss and a flash together, they're not just spamming it randomly. What they might do is they're gonna concuss a common choke point, flash it so as they swing it, players are either concussed, flashed, or both, and then get the kills. But if you're throwing things out in the wrong order, like using your blast and then your concuss afterwards, it's probably not going to hit because everyone dispersed from the blast. So maybe you concuss first and use a blast second. I know it's going to sound like everyone has the same tip here, but Brim, you're probably using your utility too much, but let me explain. Most smoke players can regen their smokes over time. It's one of their passives, but Brim does not get that. Instead, Brim gets 3 pretty long lasting smokes compared to others, but they don't regen. And the mistake you're making on Brim with this is that the second your smoke runs out, you're placing a new one without even checking if it's clear first. It's okay to have some downtime with a choke point not smoked. This might give you an opportunity to get a pick or influence what the other team's going to do. But the thing is, if you use all of your smokes too early, you're not going to have it for when you really need it during the actual push. This Brimmel is super important and super overlooked, especially in lower elo, but it was still only just the 3rd tip out of all 23 agents in Valorant. And these mistakes only get more detrimental as the list goes on. For example, we have Chamber's mistake. And the main mistake I see people making is they only use their TP to get out of sticky situations. They have it set up next to them while they op, and they use the TP out like a jet dash. While this is okay, you want to be mixing it up sometimes. You can actually use your TPs to get to very uncommon angles that most characters wouldn't be able to find themselves in. This will get you unexpected kills with your op. And also in the prep phase, you do get to place your TP more than once, so maybe you TP up to an angle and then put your TP down back to the floor so that you can retreat when needed. Our next character is also Sentinel, being Cypher. Now your main issue with Cypher is that people are putting their cams in very visible spots. They're going to put it in the front of sight because of course they can see everything, you can see the push, but the thing is the enemies can see it too. It's right in the middle of your screen, they barely have to move their mouse to get it, sure they have to move up, but they don't have to turn around or anything. It's very easy to destroy. What you're going to want to do is put the cameras in spots where they're going to have to be not facing your team to break the camera. So maybe above a choke point, so that way they have to turn around and look up to break the cam, which they can't do in the middle of a gunfight. Following Cypher, we have Deadlock. And aside from playing Deadlock being a mistake, a common mistake Deadlock players make is using our sound sensors to watch flank, when chances are it will literally do nothing. Think about it, most of the time when you flank, you're not full sprinting, you're gonna be slow walking, so you can just walk right by it and it won't matter. What you're gonna wanna do is put your sound sensors on common choke points, or maybe use for post plant. For example, you plant the bomb, put a sound sensor on the bomb. If they tap the defuse, they get concussed. Same thing with plant spots. Maybe put it on choke points where you know someone's going to start shooting. Just spots where people commonly wouldn't be too quiet. Moving on to Fade, the biggest issue I see is people just throwing her eye directly into the middle of sight without making it hard to break at all. It's the same as the Cypher cams. You can't put things in a spot where it won't make it struggle to break. Even if you don't know lineups, you can really just throw it in an odd corner. You can choose when your Fade eye lands, so it's not too hard to do this off a whim. But even getting it on a slightly more elevated angle or somewhere behind people is going to make it hard for them to break it and hopefully get you a higher chance of getting a kill off of this ability. Next in line, the common mistake I see people making with Gecko is only using your wingman to plant instead of using it for intel. Most people just leave this little buddy sitting in their pocket waiting until they get the bomb to plant the bomb. And while that is okay and it works a lot of the time, maybe they'll break your thing, maybe you're on defense and you're literally just holding it the whole round hoping they plant the spike. But if they don't plant it, it's a useless ability. So what you're going to do is actually use it for intel. This thing works like a raise Roomba, but debatably better, because the chances are a raise Roomba won't kill anyone and it can be broken pretty easily. If Gecko's wingman hits someone, it's a pretty big concuss, and I think it's a little bit more annoying to kill than a Roomba. That might just be me though. Speaking of planting the bomb, Harbor players need to start using their coves to cover the planter and or diffuser. I couldn't think of anything too much better for Harbor, but this is one of the most common mistakes I see people using. Your Cove is probably one of your best abilities. It is a shielded smoke that no one else has, so take advantage of it. get the plant down safely, buy yourself extra time on the defuse, do what you need to do. Speaking of being scared to use things, ISO players' biggest mistakes is being scared to use their ult. They'll hold it on for way too long, but really what you need to do is just send it on a push. Coordinate with your team, tell them you're gonna ult the second the round starts, and while you're in that 1v1, take your time because your teammates are gonna push up off of it. They're gonna push to where you ulted, so if you do lose, they can get your refrag and claim the space from the person being in a whole different dimension. So you really don't even need to get the kill for it to help your team. On the topic of entrying, Jet players are conserving way too much of their utility. Most rounds, Jet players don't even end up using things, and it's costing them their site executes because they're probably just dashing into one smoke or not even dashing into a smoke at all and just raw dogging into sites. You need to use your updrafts, you need to use your dashes, you need to use your smokes. These are all very good abilities. There's a reason Jet is one of the best characters in the game. Take advantage of it. And while you should be using your abilities on Jet, make sure you're passive with them on KO. Let me explain. I see way too many KO players immediately knifing the second the round starts. This goes for defense and attack, but maybe slow it down a little bit, especially if you're a defense player. If you knife off rip every round, they're just going to start waiting your knife out. You're going to want to use it sporadically to try and catch them off guard. Your knife is also way too good to just be wasted before a push even starts, because remember, you get to take away as many people as you hit abilities. The next agent who we're going to be going over is going to be Killjoy. Now, the common mistake I see most KJ players making is only knowing one site setup or only playing one site setup for an entire match. You may have a really good B site setup and not know the A one too well, but the thing is, if you go B every single time, they're just not going to go to your site, and your setup will be useless, or they'll just know how to break your setup. You want to be switching between where you're going and cycling through setups to keep things from getting too obvious for the enemy team. It's all about keeping them on their toes, especially with an agent as annoying and powerful as Killjoy. Someone a little bit less powerful though is Neon, and just like Deadlock, playing a Neon is a mistake on its own, but another mistake you're probably making is only using the wall to cut down the middle of a choke. This is honestly the worst way you can possibly use Neon's wall, and it's better just to section it off into a smaller area to allow for a better flood onto the site. Usually when you put a direct wall in the middle of site, it's really easy to peek off of, and no matter what, you're probably gonna get someone killed. Omen's big mistake would be not coordinating your blind with your team, because here's the thing, Omen probably has one of the best blinds in all of Valorant. It covers a very large area, you can't really dodge it unless if you run out of the way, which even then is gonna set people off and they won't be able to attack because they're gonna be running. So make sure you're coordinating this with your team. Set up a push with it, make sure your teammates know to swing off of it. You don't want to be wasting this blind. It's also very expensive. Speaking of wasting utility, Raze's mistake is one that no Raze main wants to admit, but sorry if I sound different, I'm recording this the next day. I actually forgot to go over Phoenix. Now the big mistake you'll see with Phoenix is people not farming ult orbs. You should almost always have your ult on Phoenix. It should be on about a 2-round cooldown, 2 to 4. You should have your ult at least 3 times and a half, let's be honest. It only takes 6 orbs to get this ult, so let's say you get at least 1 kill per round, you're grabbing at least 1 orb per round, you should be getting at least 2 ult points, 3 if you die. It's a very quick to farm ult, so make sure you're taking advantage of it, because it's a really good one too. You give your team a 6th player, and it's just silly not to take advantage. Now let's get back to Raze. You're probably overusing the double satchel. While it can be cool, it's not the most useful way to use the satchel ability. You can use these to get some cheeky kills in other ways that you wouldn't expect, and the enemies wouldn't expect, or you can just use them to adjust yourself from a gunfight, maybe swing with them on a gunfight, things of that nature. Another duelist I'm sure I have a lot of one-trick cleaner for would be Reyna, and a lot of you guys, especially in low elo, are making the mistake of dismissing or healing right after you get a kill without even thinking. And this usually leads to you missing out on potential frags and turning what could have been maybe an ace and limiting it to maybe 1 or 2 kills. You need to wait a second before you use it and actually think, do I need this? I see people with 150 HP instantly popping a heal for no reason. A, you wasted the ability, and B, you're getting put in an animation that doesn't let you shoot. So if someone swings while you do this, which they probably will, you will die. You just need to know when to use what. And then an agent I see the most mistakes made on, especially this one specifically, is going to be Sage. And the big mistake that I'm going to talk about right now is that you need to stop insta-walling stuff. Walling with 0 intel is a waste of a ton of credits and a super important piece of utility. This mainly happens on maps like Split, where someone's going to wall mid, and while walling mid is a good thing to do, why are you walling mid if no one's there? Maybe they'll come later. Well, here's the thing. Your wall is going to break by later. So just be a little bit patient, hold the angle. You hear a lot of people running, throw your wall up. Next, we have Skye. On Skye, if you use your dog and someone ends up pushing you and you can't concuss them, so you need to get off your dog to not die, don't launch your dog and get in the animation where it needs to blow up. Cancel the ability. It's 2 different things, but all you have to do is hold a button. It'll get you off of it, and it'll be a little bit quicker than launching the dog. That little bit of time might just give you that slight advantage you need to save your life, which could lead to a round win, and obviously every round in Valorant matters. As you may know, Sova is similar to KO in many ways, and they share the same mistakes too. 2. People need to stop instantly arrowing. While it's okay sometimes to get early info, it shouldn't be something you do every round. It becomes too predictable, people will hide from it, people will shoot it right away. You lose the entire point of the ability if you're just always putting it in the same spot. So make sure you change up where you throw it, and make sure you change up your timings. Viper is also a very high skill gap character, which a lot of people are making mistakes with. A lot of Viper players are only using their mollies for post-plant lineups, which means most of the time, they never even get close to using the ability. Like, be honest with me, how often do you get the bomb down in a round and then have time to set up 2 throw lineups for that bomb and not get flanked and not die? So while it does happen, it's not most rounds. So you need to start using your mollies a little bit more aggressively and in different scenarios. You can use it to cut off pushes from the enemies, whether you're on attack or defense, it'll hold them back. And then also you can use it to push enemies out of tricky corners that they're camping. And now that we finally made it to the end of the list, we have one more character left. Before we get to that, I want to ask you, do you agree with what I've been saying throughout this video? If you have any mistakes you'd like to add, leave them in the comments below. And let's close this video off talking about Yoru. And my thing with Yoru is that people need to stop going for the shorty ult kills. While you can still pull it off, it is much harder than it used to be, and I don't think it's personally worth the risk. The animation of getting out of the ult is a little bit longer than it used to be, so it's going to take you longer to get the shotgun up to get the kill. People are going to have an easier chance to turn around and just kill you while doing this trick. So what I recommend, use the ult for intel, use the reposition. While you can get kills with it, I just don't think that the shorty way in particular is the right way to go about it. But after that, I have now gone through all 23 agents in Valorant and the mistakes you're probably making on them. If you know someone making some of these mistakes, make sure to share this video with them. With that being said, that's it for this video. 2 videos are about to pop up right here. Feel free to watch them. You can also subscribe. Make sure you wear your seatbelt and stay hydrated.